Imagine arriving in a new country to marry a king,
Oh my goodness.
only to discover he insists his mistress become your lady-in-waiting.
Oh, wow.
That was just one challenge faced by Catherine of Braganza, Queen of
Wow.
England in the 1660s.
Mm.
We're going deep into her life today.
Yeah.
Our guide.
Mm.
2 episodes of the Not Just the Tudors podcast.
Oh, okay. Right.
They feature historians Andrea Zuvich and Dr. Sophie Sherland.
Great.
Both have written a lot about Catherine and her world.
It's fascinating how she's so often overlooked.
Yeah.
She navigated a court filled with scandal and political intrigue.
Yeah.
We hear about Charles II and his mistresses,
Right.
but Catherine's story is one of resilience and quiet power.
Let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
She wasn't born a princess, right?
No.
No.
Her father was the Duke of Braganza,
Okay.
powerful figure in Portugal,
Yeah.
but not the king.
Got it.
It was Catherine's mother, Louisa, who really set the stage for the family's rise to the throne.
It's right.
She was incredibly ambitious and used her influence strategically,
Wow.
even her young daughter, to secure her husband's claim as King of Portugal.
Wow. Talk about pressure.
Yeah.
So Catherine grew up knowing her life was tied to the fate of her country.
Absolutely. And it wasn't an easy time.
Yeah.
Portugal was fighting for independence from Spain.
Right.
And Catherine's role,
Hmm.
even from a young age,
Yeah.
was considered strategically important.
The sources mentioned she had a pretty sheltered upbringing, though.
Yeah. An English observer at the time remarked she'd barely left the palace.
Wow.
But don't mistake sheltered for naive.
Right.
She was trained in statecraft by her mother
Yeah.
and witnessed firsthand the political maneuvering required to secure a crown.
That's amazing.
Right.
And then there's the tragedy of losing her older brother, Teodosio.
Yes.
He was seen as the future of Portugal.
Right.
He died while Catherine was still a teenager.
That loss profoundly impacted her.
Right.
It solidified her dedication to Portugal's future.
Right.
She even later requested to be buried next to him,
Wow.
showing how significant that bond was.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that Catherine's story is about more than just being a queen.
Yeah.
It's about her personal sacrifices for her nation.
So how did she end up married to Charles II?
Um,
It wasn't exactly a love match, was it?
Not in the romantic sense.
Right.
Charles needed a wife,
Yeah.
Catherine, with her massive dowry,
Yeah.
and the strategically important territories of Bombay and Tangier. She was a very attractive prospect.
Yeah.
The marriage was a political alliance, plain and simple.
But there were concerns about Catherine's appearance, weren't there?
Yes, some English ambassadors weren't exactly complimentary,
Oh.
which must have been incredibly hurtful.
Yeah.
However, Charles was reportedly smitten by her portrait
Okay.
and agreed to the marriage.
Okay, but let's be honest.
Mm.
The elephant in the room is Charles's notorious philandering.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes. We can't ignore the mistresses, particularly Barbara Villiers, the Countess of Castlemaine.
Right.
Charles insisted she become one of Catherine's ladies-in-waiting,
Well.
even though Castlemaine had just given birth to his child.
Oh, my goodness.
This demand reveals a lot about the power dynamics at play.
It's shockingly disrespectful.
Yeah.
How could he do that to his new wife?
Right.
Especially someone who had come from another country.
Yeah.
What was he thinking?
It's likely Charles, as king,
Mhm.
was used to getting his way and
Mhm.
underestimated Catherine's resolve.
Oh.
He might have also seen this as a way to assert his dominance early on in the marriage.
Yeah.
Remember, this was a time when a king's authority was rarely challenged,
Right.
especially not by his wife.
The sources mentioned Catherine initially refused, even fainting from the stress of the situation.
Yes. Imagine arriving in a foreign country,
Yeah.
already feeling isolated and anxious, and then being publicly humiliated like that.
Yeah.
It's a testament to her strength that she didn't completely crumble.
Right.
However, she eventually realized open confrontation wouldn't work in this court.
So how did she survive?
Right.
Let alone thrive in such a hostile environment?
She became a master of what we might call soft power.
Hmm.
She started befriending her rivals,
And-
including Charles's illegitimate children.
Wow.
She even earned the nickname
Yeah.
the godmother to half the nation.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Instead of letting the situation embitter her, she turned it to her advantage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She understood that building alliances,
Yes.
even with those she might have considered enemies,
Yeah.
was crucial for her survival and influence.
Yeah.
This was a clever strategy, especially in a court rife with factions and power struggles. Catherine also understood the importance of creating spaces where she could exert influence.
Hmm.
She established informal gatherings called circles,
Okay.
which became hot spots for the elite.
So it sounds like she was creating her own court within the court.
Precisely. An invitation to one of her circles became a mark of social and political currency.
Interesting.
This was a subtle but effective way for Catherine to build a power base independent of Charles.
Yeah.
She couldn't directly challenge his authority,
Right.
but she could shape the social and political landscape of the court through these gatherings.
It's fascinating to see how she adapted to the challenges she faced.
Right.
And found ways to carve out her own space within a system that seemingly offered her very little power.
Mm-hmm.
The sources mentioned she also had a significant impact on English culture.
Yes. Catherine brought a touch of her Portuguese heritage to England, introducing Baroque music and art.
Okay.
While not immediately embraced,
Right.
the diarist John Evelyn was quite critical.
Oh, wow.
But these styles eventually flourished,
Yeah.
demonstrating Catherine's role in expanding the artistic horizons of the English court.
So while she was navigating this complex social and political landscape,
Right.
what was her personal life like? It couldn't have been easy being married to a man who so openly flaunted his affairs.
It certainly wasn't.
Right.
Catherine endured multiple miscarriages, which were devastating both personally and politically.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, a queen's primary duty at the time was to produce an heir,
Right.
and her inability to do so put her in a vulnerable position.
The sources suggest she might have even experienced a stillbirth,
Right.
which is heartbreaking.
It's awful.
Yeah. How did she cope with such profound loss,
Right.
especially in an environment where her worth was so closely tied to her ability to bear children?
It's a testament to her resilience and inner strength that she didn't let these tragedies break her.
Mm-hmm.
She found solace in her faith, her friendships, and her cultural pursuits.
Right.
The source also mentioned that she had a yacht built
Oh,
and named it Saudade,
okay.
a Portuguese word encompassing a deep sense of longing and melancholy.
Oh.
It seems she poured her sadness and yearning into that vessel.
It's a poignant reminder that even those in positions of power experience deep personal pain and loss. We often focus on the glamorous aspects of royal life,
Yeah.
but Catherine's story reminds us of the human cost of those positions.
And her challenges didn't end there.
Right.
Remember, this was a time of intense religious tension in England.
Yeah.
The Popish plot of 1678,
Okay.
fueled by fabricated tales of Catholic conspiracies,
Wow.
whipped the country into a frenzy of anti-Catholic hysteria.
Catherine, being Catholic, must have been terrified,
Right.
for those who might not know.
Okay.
Can you briefly explain what the Popish plot was
Sure.
and why it was so significant?
Of course.
Yeah.
The Popish plot was a fictional conspiracy concocted by Titus Oates, who claimed there was a Catholic plot to assassinate Charles II
Oh.
and install his Catholic brother James on the throne.
Oh, my goodness.
This fabrication played on existing anti-Catholic fears and prejudices in England,
Right.
leading to widespread panic and persecution of Catholics.
So this was essentially a period of mass hysteria based on lies and fear-mongering.
Absolutely.
It's chilling how easily misinformation can spiral out of control
Right.
and have some devastating consequences.
And for Catherine as the Catholic queen,
Right.
this was an incredibly dangerous time.
Yeah.
Oates even tried to implicate her in the plot,
Wow.
claiming she was involved in a plan to poison Charles.
That's outrageous.
It is.
What happened? Did anyone believe him?
Thankfully, Charles saw through the lies and defended his wife.
Okay.
However, the damage was done.
Right.
The Popish plot fueled the arguments of those who wanted Charles to divorce Catherine
Oh, wow.
and remarry a Protestant
Oh, my goodness.
to secure a Protestant heir.
So she was facing pressure from both within the court and from the wider public,
Yes,
all because of her religion.
right.
How did she manage to stay afloat amidst all this turmoil?
Catherine's popularity, carefully cultivated over the years, likely helped her during this period. She was seen as a dutiful and unthreatening queen,
Yeah.
which may have shielded her from the worst of the anti-Catholic backlash. She also refused to flee back to Portugal,
Wow.
even when her brother urged her to do so for her safety.
Wow.
She knew leaving could be interpreted as an admission of guilt
Right.
and would permanently damage her position.
It's remarkable how she maintained her composure
Yeah.
and refused to be cowed by fear.
Right.
She understood the importance of remaining vigilant and defiant in the face of such blatant bigotry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was a strategic move that ultimately helped to preserve her reputation
Right.
and her position within the court.
But even while navigating this dangerous political climate,
Mm-hmm.
she still had to contend with Charles's mistresses.
Right.
I'm particularly interested in Louise de Querouaille, the Duchess of Portsmouth,
Okay.
who became Charles's new favorite in the 1670s.
Right.
What's the story there?
Louise is a fascinating figure.
Yeah.
She was a French noblewoman known for her beauty and charm, and she quickly became one of Charles's most influential mistresses.
Mm.
And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Louise was also appointed as one of Catherine's ladies-in-waiting.
Wait, so after everything Catherine went through with Barbara Villiers,
Right.
Charles appoints another mistress to her household.
Yes.
He clearly wasn't learning from his mistakes.
It's a bizarre situation, to say the least.
Yeah.
The sources suggest Catherine and Louise had a complex relationship.
Okay.
They traveled together, spent a lot of time together,
Mm-hmm.
but there were hints of jealousy and rivalry.
It must have been incredibly difficult for Catherine to maintain a cordial relationship
Right.
with a woman who was openly sharing her husband's affections.
It must have been.
Did she try to fight this appointment?
There's no evidence of that.
Mm,
By this point, Catherine had learned to play the long game.
right.
She understood that open confrontation wouldn't work with Charles.
Yeah.
Instead, she focused on securing her own position
Okay.
and building alliances within the court.
So she continued to use her soft power strategies to navigate this complex
Right.
and often hostile environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Catherine was a pragmatist.
Yeah.
She recognized the limits of her power and adapted her strategies accordingly.
Right.
She couldn't control Charles's behavior,
Right.
but she could control her own reactions and her own course of action.
It's a valuable lesson for anyone facing difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most effective approach is not to fight head-on,
Right.
but to find ways to work within the system and subtly influence it from within.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Catherine's story is a masterclass in resilience and adaptability.
Right.
She faced incredible challenges, but
Yeah.
she never allowed herself to be defined by them.
Right.
She found ways to assert her agency and to make her voice heard,
Yeah.
even within the confines of a patriarchal system that sought to limit her power.
And all of this was happening against the backdrop of a major succession crisis,
Right.
with Catherine unable to produce an heir
Hmm.
and Charles's Catholic brother James next in line.
Yes.
The stability of the monarchy was in question.
This brings us to one of the most dramatic events of Catherine's later life,
Okay.
the Glorious Revolution of 1688.
This is a pivotal moment in English history,
It is.
but it can be a bit confusing to follow.
Right.
Can you give us a quick overview of what happened?
Of course.
Yeah.
After Charles II's death,
Mm-hmm.
his Catholic brother James II ascended the throne.
Okay.
However, his attempts to promote Catholicism and
Right.
his autocratic style of rule quickly made him unpopular.
And there was a lot of fear about England returning to Catholicism after the turmoil of the Reformation
Exactly.
and the religious wars of the previous century.
So Parliament invited William of Orange,
Okay.
a Protestant prince married to James II's daughter Mary,
Mm-hmm.
to invade England and claim the throne.
Wow.
This invasion led to the Glorious Revolution, a
Ah.
relatively bloodless coup
Yeah.
that resulted in William and Mary becoming joint monarchs of England.
And this had huge implications for England's future,
Yeah.
leading to the establishment of a constitutional monarchy
Right.
and greater limitations on royal power.
Right.
But what about Catherine?
Yes.
Where does she fit into all of this?
Catherine's role in the Glorious Revolution is often overlooked, but
Okay.
it's quite significant.
Okay.
Although she supported James II,
Right.
she had also maintained a good relationship with his daughter Mary.
Yeah.
This proved crucial during this tumultuous period.
So while the men were fighting for the throne,
Right.
Catherine was quietly working behind the scenes to ensure a smooth transition of power.
Precisely.
Wow.
She used her diplomatic skills and personal connections
Yeah.
to help ease tensions and facilitate a peaceful resolution.
Yeah.
This was no small feat considering the high stakes
Right.
and the religious divisions that had plagued England for decades.
It's another example of Catherine's subtle but effective influence.
Exactly.
She may not have had armies or political titles,
Hmm.
but she understood the power of relationships and negotiation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Catherine was a master of diplomacy and a shrewd observer of human nature.
Right.
She knew how to play the long game,
Yeah.
and her actions during the Glorious Revolution demonstrate her political acumen and her commitment to stability, even amidst a chaotic power struggle.
So with England now under the rule of William and Mary, what became of Catherine?
Well, after all the turmoil and upheaval she'd witnessed, Catherine decided to return to her homeland.
Okay.
By this point, Portugal was finally independent and Charles II had passed away.
Yeah.
She'd fulfilled her duty to both England and Portugal.
It must have been bittersweet leaving England.
Yeah.
On one hand, she'd faced so much hardship and heartbreak there,
Right.
but she'd also built a life and cultivated meaningful relationships.
Absolutely. And she left behind a complicated legacy.
Yeah.
You know, she remained childless, which contributed to the succession crisis that ultimately led to the Glorious Revolution.
Right.
Yet she was also a beloved figure by many,
Yeah.
known for her piety, her generosity, and her quiet dignity.
And despite the challenges she'd faced with Charles's mistresses,
Right.
she never seemed to let the bitterness consume her.
That's a testament to her strength of character and her unwavering faith.
Yeah.
You know, she drew strength from her religion,
Right.
which provided her with a sense of purpose and solace amidst the trials and tribulations of court life.
So what did she do once she returned to Portugal? Did she
Um,
finally get that quiet retirement?
Not exactly. She
Mhm.
jumped right back into the world of politics,
Wow.
serving as regent for her brother, King Pedro, when he fell ill.
Well, even after all those years in the English court, she hadn't lost her political touch.
Not one bit.
Amazing.
She proved to be a capable and decisive leader,
Right.
demonstrating those skills she'd honed while navigating the treacherous waters of Charles II's court.
It's amazing how she constantly defied expectations.
Yeah.
People underestimated her at their peril.
Precisely. She was often dismissed as a quiet, pious woman,
Right.
but she possessed a sharp mind, a strong will, and a deep understanding of politics.
The sources also mention that she played a pivotal role in solidifying the Anglo-Portuguese alliance, right?
Yes. She was instrumental in signing a new treaty
Okay.
that brought Portugal back into an alliance with England after a period of being aligned with France.
Wow.
This was a major diplomatic achievement with far-reaching consequences.
It's remarkable to think that one woman could have such a lasting impact on international relations.
Right.
What a legacy.
Mm-hmm.
But her influence extended beyond politics.
You're right.
Yeah.
She also made a mark on British culture.
Okay.
The popularity of tea drinking during her time as queen is partly attributed to her.
I'd heard that before, but had no idea it was connected to Catherine of Braganza.
It's true.
Wow.
And there are even places named after her,
Oh, wow.
such as the Borough of Queens in New York City.
Wow.
Her presence is still felt in the cultural landscape even centuries later.
It's ironic that a queen who was often overlooked in her own time ended up having such an enduring impact on the world.
Her story really challenges us to rethink how we define power and influence.
Right.
Catherine may not have had the most powerful title or the loudest voice, but she understood how to wield power in subtle and strategic ways.
Right.
She built alliances, she cultivated relationships,
Yeah.
and she used her position to promote causes she believed in.
As we wrap up our deep dive into the life of Catherine of Braganza,
Yeah.
I think it's important to ask what we can learn from her story.
Right.
What lessons can we apply to our own lives, even if we're not navigating royal courts and political intrigue?
Catherine's story is a testament to the power of resilience, adaptability, and strategic thinking.
Right.
You know, she faced immense challenges,
Right.
personal tragedies, political upheavals, religious persecution,
Yeah.
but she never gave up.
Mhm.
She found ways to persevere, to adapt to changing circumstances,
Yeah.
and to use her influence to shape her own destiny.
She also reminds us that power doesn't always have to be loud or flashy.
Right.
Sometimes the most effective forms of power are subtle and strategic.
Right.
Catherine may not have been a warrior queen,
Mm-hmm.
but she was a master diplomat,
Mm-hmm.
a skilled negotiator, and a keen observer of human nature.
And her story teaches us the importance of staying true to ourselves,
Yeah.
even when faced with pressure to conform.
Right.
Catherine never wavered in her faith, even when it made her a target.
Yeah.
She held on to her values,
Yeah.
and that inner strength helped her navigate some of the most difficult challenges imaginable.
So the next time you're feeling overwhelmed by challenges, unsure of your own strengths,
Mm-hmm.
or tempted to compromise your beliefs,
Right.
remember Catherine of Braganza.
Yeah.
She faced incredible adversity but never let it break her.
Right.
She found ways to rise above her circumstances, to make her voice heard, and to leave a lasting legacy on the world.
And remember, her story is just one of many waiting to be discovered. Take the time to explore the lives of those forgotten figures.
Right.
Those individuals whose contributions have been overlooked or marginalized. You never know what insights and inspiration you might find.
That's a great reminder to always be curious, to keep asking questions.
Right.
And to challenge the traditional narratives we've been told.
Exactly.
There's always more to learn, more to uncover, and more stories waiting to be told.